Okay, today we're going to look at some practice questions. And our first practice question is as follows: Which of the following particles are found in the nucleus of an atom? Electrons and protons, protons and neutrons, electrons and neutrons, or only protons? All right, if you answered B, you would be correct. All right, our next question: A covalent bond forms when protons are shared between atoms, an electron is transferred from one atom to another, or the partial positive end of one molecule attracts to the partial negative end of another, and two atoms share a pair of electrons. And if you chose D, share for covalent, you would be correct. Next question. A solution with a pH of 5 is acidic, basic, neutral, or strong. Something with a pH of 5 would be acidic. Question 4. The pH scale measures the concentration of blank ions: hydrogen, sodium, hydroxide, potassium. If you said hydrogen, you would be correct. An enzyme does which of the following? Raises the temperature of a reaction, speeding it up, lowers the temperature of a reaction, slowing it down, raises the activation energy of a reaction, slowing it down, or lowers the activation energy of a reaction, speeding it up. If you said lowers the activation energy of a reaction, speeding it up, you would be correct. All right, next we're going to match some things. So let's bring this down a little bit smaller so we can compare. All right, so we're going to read the definitions first, and then we're going to try to figure out what term that is. All right, a process by which solute particles move from an area of high solute concentration to an area of low solute concentration. So, what is the term that best matches that definition? So, solute moving from high to low, that is passive transport. How about a solution in which the concentration of solutes is higher relative to another solution? What term matches that definition? Correct answer is hypertonic solution. How about the endocytic process by which a cell absorbs extracellular fluid containing dissolved particles? What term matches that definition? Correct answer is penocytosis. The process by which solute particles move from an area of low solute concentration to an area of high solute concentration. What term best matches that definition? Correct answer there is active transport. A process by which a cell excretes, secretes, or gets rid of waste products via expulsion from the cell. What term matches that definition? Last but not least, exocytosis. All right, question 11. What chemical process occurs in the cell organelle called the mitochondria? Cellular respiration, plasmolysis, photosynthesis, or cytolysis? If you said cellular respiration, you would be correct. Organisms that make their own energy are called animals, heterotrophs, autotrophs, or other feeders. If you said autotrophs, you would be correct. 13. Which of the following is an example of qualitative data? The plant grew from 5 centimeters to 6.3 centimeters in 2 weeks. The brown bear positioned itself in the middle of the stream. The chickens laid an average of 2 eggs per day. The temperature increased from 45 degrees Celsius to 50 degrees Celsius. The best example of qualitative data would be B. The brown bear positioned itself in the middle of the stream. Question 24. After completing a controlled experiment, the scientist changes the dosage of an antibiotic and repeats the experiment. The change in dosage is the independent variable, dependent variable, constant, or control. If you said A, independent variable, you would be correct. The microscopic platform upon which a slide is placed is called the blank. Eyepiece, arm, base, or stage. If you said stage, you would be correct. Question 28. The distance between the objective lens and the stage or specimen slide is called the blank distance. Working, viewing, objective, functional. If you said working, you would be correct. Our body works to keep our temperature at about 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. This is an example of which characteristic of living things? Living things are organized. Living things respond to stimuli. Living things maintain homeostasis, and living things need energy. If you said C, living things maintain homeostasis, you would be correct. Question 30. If you put a plant in your window, then the stem will lean in the direction of the sun. This is an example of which characteristic of life? Living things are organized, living things respond to stimuli, living things maintain homeostasis, or living things need energy. If you said B, living things respond to stimuli, you'd be correct. When released in large quantities into the atmosphere, what gas do some scientists believe may be responsible for the greenhouse effect? Oxygen, carbon dioxide, nitrogen, or sulfur dioxide? If you said carbon dioxide, you would be correct. 32. The number of individuals of a single species per unit area is known as carrying capacity, logistic growth, population density, or population growth rate. If you said C, population density, then you would be correct. All right, next we're going to look at some definitions and try to match them up with their term. First definition, an interaction in which one organism benefits from the relationship and the other organism is harmed. What would be the best term that matches that definition? The best term here would definitely be parasitism. The next definition, an interaction in which both organisms benefit from the relationship. What term best matches that definition? Correct answer, mutualism. Next definition, An interaction in which one organism kills and eats the other organism. Answer: predation. And last definition: an interaction in which one organism benefits from the relationship and the other organism is unaffected. Answer: commensalism. Question 37. Which of the following conditions would likely result in the most competition for food? A lion and a zebra in the savannah? An elephant and an ant colony in the savannah? A grasshopper and a plant in your backyard? A deer and a rabbit in a meadow? If you said D, you would be correct. They have similar food and a similar habitat. They'd be in the most competition with each other. Which of the following produces the most ATP? Glycolysis, the Krebs cycle, electron transport chain, or fermentation? If you said C, electron transport chain, you would be correct. What energy conversion occurs through photosynthesis? Light energy to mechanical energy, light energy to chemical energy to light energy, and I think D is down here. Yep. Light energy to nuclear energy. If you said B, light energy to chemical energy, you would be correct. Question 40. ATP synthase depends on the facilitated diffusion of which of the following to make ATP? Hydrogen ions, oxygen, water molecules, or carbon dioxide? If you said A, hydrogen ions, you'd be correct. What is the final electron acceptor in the electron transport chain of cellular respiration? Hydrogen ions, oxygen, water molecules, or carbon dioxide? If you said B, oxygen, you would be correct. Which of the following is not part of a DNA molecule? A nitrogen base, deoxyribose sugar, phosphate groups, or a ribose sugar? If you said a ribose sugar, you would be correct. The sequence of nucleotides in mRNA is determined by the sequence of nucleotides in amino acids, DNA, tRNA, or ribosomes. If you said DNA, you'd be correct. What molecule brings the amino acids to the ribosome during protein synthesis? mRNA, tRNA, DNA, or polypeptides? If you said tRNA, you would be correct. Who is considered the father of genetics? Gregor Mendel, Reginald Punnett, James Watson, or JBS Haldane? You said Gregor Mendel, you would be correct. If the DNA sequences of a gene pair are identical, they are said to be blank. Homozygous, heterozygous, analogous, or homologous? If you said A, homozygous, you would be correct. The physical characteristics of an individual are known as their blank: prototype, genotype, phenotype, or archetype. If you said phenotype, you would be correct. In a gene pair, the allele expressed, seen in the organism, is called the blank allele. Prominent, dominant, recessive, submissive. If you said dominant, you would be correct. In blank dominance, the expression of the blank allele masks the expression of the blank allele. Complete, dominant, recessive. Complete, recessive, dominant. Incomplete, dominant, recessive. Incomplete, recessive, dominant. To make this sentence true, the correct answer was A. In complete dominance, the expression of the dominant allele masks the expression of the recessive allele. In incomplete dominance, if a red flower is crossed with a white flower, the offspring could be red, white, or pink. If you chose pink, you are correct. When Gregor Mendel crossed true breeding purple flowered plants with true breeding white flowered plants, why were all the offspring purple? The allele for purple flowered plants is recessive. The allele for white flowered plants is dominant. The allele for purple flowered plants is dominant. The allele for white flowered plants is recessive. If you said C, the allele for purple flowered plants is dominant, you would be correct. 52. What is the failure of homologous chromosomes to separate during meiosis called? Non-disjunction, translocation, Down syndrome, or Huntington's disease? If you said A, non-disjunction, you are correct. 53. The species of finches that Charles Darwin found on the Galapagos Islands displayed different structural adaptations. What was one of the adaptations that Darwin noted? Similarities of the bird's embryos, birds' different shaped beaks, length of the bird's necks, or numbers of eggs in each bird's nest. If you said B, birds' different shaped beaks, you would be correct. What is the process called when farmers breed only their best livestock? Natural selection, artificial selection, artificial variation, or survival of the fittest? If you said artificial selection, you are correct. All right, question 55. According to binomial nomenclature, which two taxons are used to represent individual organisms? Kingdom and phylum, class and order, genus and species, or family and genus? If you said C, genus and species, you would be correct. What is the correct order for the taxons of life from most general to most specific? Kingdom, phylum, order, class, family, species, genus, or phylum, kingdom, class, order, genus, family, species? Or how about kingdom, phylum, order, class, family, genus, species? Or kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species? If you said D, then you would be correct. A good way to remember this is King Philip came over from Great Spain. 57. According to the Five Kingdoms system, Kingdom Monera combines what two kingdoms which contains organisms whose structure is composed of prokaryotic cells? Fungi and Animalia, Animalia and Plantae, Plantae and Protista, Protista and Fungi, Archaebacteria and Eucabacteria. If you said Archaea and Bacteria or E, then you would be correct. The scientific name of the white oak is Quercus alba. Which of the following organisms has the most similarities? Felis domesticus, Quercus rubra, Umbricus terrestris, Passer dumerticus. You said Quercus rubra because they share a genus, then you would be correct. Bacterial cells that have rod-shaped cells are called bacillus, coccus, spirillum, none of these. If you said A, you would be correct. Which group of animal-like protists captures its food using pseudopods? Ciliads, sarcodines, or flagellates? You said sarcodines, like the amoeba, then you would be correct. 61. What is a type of unicellular plant-like protist with beautiful glass-like cell walls? A water mold, green algae, ciliate, or a diatom? If you said D, diatom, you would be correct. What is the contractile vacuole used to do? Contract into a ball shape, maintain water balance, form a cyst under unfavorable conditions, control reproduction. If you said B, maintain water balance, you would be correct. Alright, let's try to match the definition to the term. First definition, flowers with both stamens and carpels. Perfect flowers. How about the transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the carpel? That's pollination. The generation that occupies the largest portion of the life cycle. Dominant generation. A life cycle in which there is both a multicellular diploid and a multicellular haploid form. Alternation of generations. Flowers with either stamens or carpels, but not both. Imperfect flowers. Now, question 68. If a tree has seed cones and pollen cones, to which group of plants does it belong? Bryophytes, non-vascular seedless plants, gymnosperms, angiosperms? If you said gymnosperms, you'd be correct. Match the following with the correct function. Okay? Protects the sexual organs as they form, and the flower before it opens. Forms and releases pollen grains. Contains the eggs awaiting fertilization. And catches pollen grains on a sticky bulb. Well, the first definition protects the sexual organs as they form in the flower before it opens. That matches with sepal. The second definition forms and releases pollen grains. That matches with anther. The next definition contains the eggs awaiting fertilization. That matches with ovary. And then it catches pollen grains on a sticky bulb. That matches stigma. Next question. Place each of the following organisms into its proper phylum. So our options for phyla are Porifera, Cnidaria, Annelida, Mollusca, and Platyhelminths. We have a sponge, a snail, a jellyfish, a segmented worm, and a flatworm. Looks like our flatworm moved down here. Let's see if we can move him back over. There we go. So first, a sponge. What phyla should we put the sponge in? All right, next, a snail. What phyla should we put the snail in? How about the jellyfish? What is its phyla? Segmented sea worm. It belongs in phylum. And the flatworm. What is its phyla? So let's check and see how you did. The sponge belongs to phylum Porifera. The snail belongs to phylum Mollusca. The jellyfish belongs to phylum Cnidaria. The segmented sea worm belongs to phyla Annelida. And the flatworm belongs to phylum Platyhelminths. What about 74? Are the following organisms univalve or bivalve mollusks? Here you can see 1 and 2 parts to this mollusk shell. These are bivalve mollusks. The picture on the right is showing just a front view. And last but not least, in an echinoderm, what structure operates like a living suction cup? The heart, the tube foot, the stomach, or the water vascular system? If you said tube foot, you would be correct. And that is it for our basic review. If you still have time in class, please look at the last couple of chapters we've been going over. There will be some new material on your final exam, specifically related to chapter 15. We'll do more review on Friday. So this is just an introduction to really get you back into some of the topics we've discussed this semester. So make sure you're reviewing material and come to class on Friday with questions.